remember the laughter. They all laughed when they thought I couldn't hear, but I did. Every word, every snort behind those champagne glasses, every whisper full of hate. I stared at the place card in front of me. It was white and expensive. In black letters, it read, IDIOTTRASH. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a typo. My wife glanced at it, hid her smirk with a sip of wine, and leaned in to her boss, Cassandra, with a gleam in her eye. They were in on the same cruel joke. That moment split my world in two. Before that night, I was the supportive husband, the quiet investor, the man behind the scenes. After, I became something else, colder, sharper, the version of me they never saw coming. We were married for 8 years. I met her when she was a bartender. She was ambitious and hungry. I admired that. I believed in her, took a chance, paid for her MBA, and used my connections to help her get a job at Cassandra Stratton's firm. I watched with pride as she climbed the ladder, first as an assistant, then an analyst, then a senior role. She started coming home later. Her clothes were sleeker, her voice colder. She used me instead of we. I asked once if we were still a team. She said I was being insecure. 3 weeks before the party, I found the first email. Her laptop was open on the kitchen counter by accident. The subject line read, "Tonight, same room." There were dozens of emails, photos, too, dinners, hotel receipts, and group chats with her coworkers calling me Mr. Doormat. There were jokes about how Cassandra loved watching her girls play with weak men, and how they dared each other to see who could humiliate their partner the most. I scrolled until my eyes burned. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just closed the laptop and went upstairs to kiss her goodnight. That's when the plan began. The plan. I played dumb for 3 weeks. I held her hand, picked out her dress for the party, and even offered to drive her. What she didn't know was that while she slept, I had a meeting with a very good divorce lawyer. I gathered every financial record, traced every expense, and even pulled receipts for those spa, weekends and girl boss retreats she claimed were for work. They weren't. While she slept beside me, I was already separating accounts, preparing asset divisions, and moving funds, legally and quietly. I built a wall, not out of anger, but out of careful planning. Then came the night of the party. The place was fancy, of course. Polished concrete floors, expensive wines, and a guest list full of people who saw money before people. I walked in beside her. No one greeted me. Just sidelong glances and snickers until I reached my seat and saw the place card. She didn't expect me to sit, but I did. I sat, smiled, and watched them all from across the candlelight. Cassandra raised her glass and toasted to unshakable women. The table cheered. I chewed my steak in silence. She never noticed the file folder in my bag, or the non-disclosure agreements, or the private investigator's report, or the photos. She didn't notice the USB drive I slipped into her firm's legal counsel's jacket pocket on the way to the bar. But she noticed when I stood up to leave. She grabbed my arm, pretending to be concerned. "Leaving already?" I smiled. "Just tired." Then I turned to Cassandra. "Before I go, I want to be clear. I'm cutting ties with you." There was a brief moment of confusion. Then I walked out. The aftermath. What followed was a chain reaction. They couldn't stop it. The legal notice arrived 3 days later. Divorce on the grounds of infidelity. I had submitted documented evidence of her financial misconduct and marital cruelty. And because of contracts she had signed using my name as a guarantor, the firm's big deal with a European fund collapsed. That's when the audits began. It turns out Cassandra had more to hide than just her employees' affairs. Fraud and misuse of funds were all revealed, because someone gave the regulators exactly what they needed. Her empire crumbled in less than 2 months. My ex-wife tried calling. I had 17 missed calls in one night, but I didn't answer. Her final message was just one sentence: "You planned this." She finally understood. I didn't do it to be cruel. Cruelty would have been shouting at the dinner table, throwing wine, and exposing her in front of everyone that night. No, this was surgical. I wanted her to feel it slowly, The weight of everything she underestimated. The husband she mocked now owned the house, the car, the savings, and even her boss. Cassandra is under federal investigation. Every girl boss who laughed at me that night is now in trouble. Some are unemployed, some are being sued, and some are suddenly very quiet online. I remember the smell of that place, linen napkins, sea base, citrus-scented soap. But mostly, I remember the silence as I turned my back on them. It was a silence that stretched, confused, then uneasy. They weren't sure what I meant. Now they do. I live differently now. I have a clean apartment, quiet mornings, and no fake smiles. I'm not angry or bitter. I don't need to be. I have peace. And they have the wreckage. Every time I pass a place card at a restaurant, I smile because I know what they forgot. Even the quiet one, even the so-called idiot, can burn empires down without raising their voice.